Own your understanding. The power of rephrasing. Introduction. Have you ever felt stuck? You read words, maybe many times. You listen closely in class and write notes fast. But when someone asks you to explain it, to say what it really means, your mind is empty. It's like having all the things to bake a cake, but not knowing how to bake it. You can say the steps, but you can't make the cake. This feeling, where you have information but don't really get it, happens to many people. In our busy world, it's easy to just say what we hear or see. We might copy words or remember facts without thinking more. This can seem like progress, but it's often just knowing a little bit. It's like looking at the front of a book and thinking you've read the whole story. This way of knowing only the surface makes us weak. When we need to think hard, use what we learned, or say why we think something, it's clear we don't truly understand. This can cause problems in school and miss chances in jobs. But what if there was a way to go from just knowing words to truly having the understanding? This book is about that power. It's about a basic skill, learning to say information in your own words. This isn't just to sound smart, it's to show yourself and others that you really understand something. It's about being honest in your work and building a strong base for all your future learning and jobs. This skill is your key to finding deeper knowledge and more confidence. The secret to this power is a practice we call saying it your way to understand. Simply put, it's the active work of taking information you learned from anywhere, a book, a teacher, or a talk, and explaining its main meaning using your own words and sentences. This is much more than just changing a few words. It means you have truly thought about the information, understood its heart, and can now say that heart in a way that is clearly yours. It's not about copying or faking. It's about making the knowledge yours, like changing a message into your own language, so you understand every small part. By getting good at saying it your way to understand, you will change how you learn. You will be able to find the most important ideas, break down hard topics, and explain them clearly. You will feel more sure of what you know and make sure you are always doing things the right way. Get ready to change information into true understanding and to truly own what you know. 1. Understanding paraphrasing and rephrasing. Learning new things can feel like trying to catch water. It slips away, and you wonder what you really learned. This happens a lot when we read, listen to talks, or try to understand hard ideas. We might read a sentence or a whole page and think we get it. But later, if someone asks us to explain it, or we need to use it for school, we might get stuck. This is where putting things in your own words helps. It's a skill that can change how you learn forever. What does putting things in your own words really mean? It's not just changing a few words. Think of a fancy clock. You could polish it or change a small screw and say it's yours. But that's not the same as knowing how all the parts work together to make it tick. Truly putting things in your own words means taking the clock apart, understanding each piece, and then explaining how it all works using your own words. You might even draw a new picture to show how it works inside. It's about finding the main idea and then building it again in a way that makes sense to you. When we just change a few words in a sentence, we often stay on the surface. For example, if a sentence says, "The student found the assignment to be very challenging," and we change it to, "The pupil thought the task was quite difficult," we've only made small changes. We swap student for pupil and challenging for difficult. The sentence sounds almost the same, and the main idea is still very close to the original. This isn't really putting things in your own words to understand them. It's more like putting on a slightly different coat of paint. If you say this is your own idea without giving credit, it can be a problem. It's like trying to pass off a slightly changed copy of someone else's work as brand new. Truly putting things in your own words goes much deeper. It means you've really understood the idea behind the words. Let's use that same sentence. The student found the assignment to be very challenging. To put this in your own words for understanding, you might think about why it was hard. Was it because it needed a lot of research? Was it a new kind of problem they hadn't seen before? Was the topic itself complicated? Based on what you understand, you might say, this assignment really tested how well I could research and think about new problems, which made it quite tough. Or maybe, I had trouble with this assignment because it asked me to work on a topic I hadn't learned about before and it took a lot of effort to figure it out. See the difference? The sentence is different, the words are different, and the explanation hints at the reason it was hard, showing you thought about it more. You're not just saying it was hard, you're showing how you felt it was hard. Being able to explain something in your own words is a strong sign. It's like a secret signal that tells you and others that you've truly learned something. Think about learning to ride a bike. You didn't just memorize steps, get on, pedal, steer. You had to feel the balance, understand how leaning changed your direction, and learn from wobbles and falls. When you could finally ride smoothly, and maybe even tell a younger sibling how to stay balanced, you went from just knowing the words to truly understanding the action. Putting information in your own words works the same way. When you can take a hard idea from a book, a talk, or a conversation and explain it in your own words, you show yourself that you've processed it. You've taken the raw information, thought about it, and made it yours. This is the main point of putting things in your own words for understanding. It's not about memorizing exact definitions or facts. It's about making the meaning so deep inside you that you can say it in a way that shows your own thinking. This is what this book is all about. Owning your understanding. This skill is very important for school and work because it stops you from being dishonest with ideas. We live in a world with information everywhere, and it's easy to copy and paste, or change someone else's work a little and say it's yours. This is called plagiarism, and it's a serious problem. In school, it can lead to failing grades or even being kicked out. At work, it can hurt your reputation and cause you to lose your job. Plagiarism isn't always done on purpose. Sometimes, we might be so busy or stressed that we don't take the time to truly understand and rephrase information. We might think we're just borrowing a good phrase or idea, not realizing that using it without giving credit is like stealing. But when you make an effort to put information in your own words, you create a natural shield against plagiarism. If you can explain an idea in your own words, you've shown that you've thought about it and understood it. This process naturally makes you think about where the idea came from and why it's important to give credit. It's like this. If you've spent time understanding how a chef makes a great meal, you can talk about the flavors, how it was cooked, and the ingredients. You can then talk about that meal, maybe even adding your own touch, but you'll always remember and respect the original chef. So, putting things in your own words has two main jobs, and knowing this helps us use it better. First, there's putting things in your own words for yourself. This is the inside work of learning. When you're studying, try to explain ideas out loud or write them down in your own words. This is your personal test of understanding. If you can't explain it clearly to yourself, you probably don't understand it as well as you think. This inside rephrasing is like building a strong base for your knowledge. Second, there's putting things in your own words for talking to others. This is when you use your own words to share information. This could be in an essay, a talk, a report, or even just a conversation. When you put information in your own words for others, you're not only showing you understand, but you're also making the information easier to grasp and connect with. You're mixing the ideas you've learned into your own story, making them part of your own thoughts. And importantly, when you do this, you still need to say where the idea came from. Putting things in your own words helps you do this the right way. You're not trying to hide where the idea came from. You're showing that you've thought about it and are now sharing it in your own way, while still respecting the person who first had the idea. Let's look at an example. Imagine you're studying history and you read about why a certain war started. The book might list several reasons: countries wanting the same business, leaders not agreeing, and armies getting bigger. If you just read this and move on, you might remember the words, but do you really understand how they connect? To put this in your own words for understanding, you might ask yourself, what does countries wanting the same business really mean here? How did leaders not agreeing lead to fighting? And how did having more weapons make war more likely? You might then think of it like this: so, the countries were all trying to get the same things and sell their products, which made them rivals. Also, their leaders couldn't agree on how to do things, which caused arguments and distrust. And, of course, when everyone is getting ready for war, it makes others feel scared and more likely to fight. Now, if you were writing an essay about why that war started, you wouldn't just copy the original sentence. You would use your own understanding, perhaps writing something like, the war was caused by a mix of things. Countries were fighting hard for trade and resources, which created tension. At the same time, big disagreements between leaders meant that arguments often got worse instead of being solved. This tense situation was made even worse by a big increase in military spending in the area, making war seem more and more likely. Notice how this version uses different words and sentence structures. It explains how the causes are linked, showing a deeper understanding of the topic. You've taken the information, thought about it, and said it in a way that is both true to the original meaning and clearly your own. This is the power of putting things in your own words for understanding. It's not just a trick, it's a way of thinking that changes how you deal with knowledge. It's the bridge between just hearing or reading something and truly owning it. The main difference between just changing a few words and truly putting things in your own words to show understanding is how deeply you think about it. Changing a few words is like moving furniture around in a room without knowing why the room is there or how it's built. It might look a bit different, but it's still the same room. Truly putting things in your own words is like redesigning the room, because you understand how it will be used. You might change where things are, the lights, and the furniture, all to make it work better for a specific purpose. When you put things in your own words, you are not just changing how the information looks, you're rebuilding its meaning to show you've grasped its main point, what it means, and its situation. It's about sharing the idea clearly and correctly using your own thoughts. How does being able to put information in your own words directly help prove true understanding? It's a direct measure of how well you comprehend. If you can take a complex idea, break it down, and then build it back up in a way that is clear and correct using your own language, it means you've gone beyond just recognizing it. You've worked with the material, questioned it, connected it to what you already know, and made it part of your own mental picture. It's like a musician who can not only play a song, but can also create new versions of it. Creating new versions shows a deep understanding of the original tune and harmony, allowing for creative expression within that structure. Likewise, when you can put things in your own words, you show that you've learned the information so well that you can use and express it with confidence and clarity. This is the very meaning of owning your understanding. It's no longer just someone else's words. It's your understanding, spoken in your own voice. In what ways does becoming skilled at paraphrasing and rephrasing protect against academic and professional dishonesty plagiarism? It acts as both a way to prevent it and a way to fix it. As a prevention, the very act of trying to rephrase makes you think deeply about the original material. This deep thinking makes you more aware of what the original author contributed. When you understand an idea well enough to say it in your own words, you are less likely to accidentally copy phrases or sentence structures because your mind is already working with the idea itself, not just the original words. It shifts your focus from copying to joining. As a fix, even when you are using a lot of someone else's ideas, the skill of rephrasing allows you to present those ideas honestly. By rephrasing and then correctly mentioning the source, you acknowledge the original author's work while still showing your own understanding and contribution to the discussion. It's about showing respect for ideas that belong to others and building your own knowledge on a foundation of honesty. It's the difference between stealing a painting and learning from a great artist, then creating your own work inspired by their methods. Now that we know what paraphrasing and rephrasing are and why they are important, the next step is to look at the practical ways and methods that help us become good at this vital skill, changing our understanding from just receiving it to actively mastering it. 2. Avoiding plagiarism with rephrasing. Sometimes, when we learn new things, we might use words that are too close to what we read. This can happen without us meaning to. It's like a small mistake in speaking, but in writing, it can cause bigger problems. This is where changing words to make them your own is very helpful to stop copying. Copying means saying someone else's thoughts or words as if they are yours. When you learn to change words, you build a strong wall against this. Imagine you read a book about how plants grow. The book might say, photosynthesis is how green plants use sun, water, and air to make their own food, and they give off oxygen. If you just change a few words, like, green plants make food using sun, water, and air, and then they let out oxygen, this is called photosynthesis. You are still very close to the first way. It might feel like you changed enough, but someone who reads carefully, or a computer, can see the same order of ideas and many of the same words. This doesn't really show that you understand how plants make food. It's just a slightly different version of what the book said. When we say changing words to understand, we mean taking the idea about how plants make food and explaining it in a way that comes from your mind, using your own way of saying things. It's not just about switching out a few words. It's about really getting the idea that plants are like little cooks making their own meals from sun, water, and air, and they give us oxygen as a gift. So, you could say it like this: plants have a special way to make their own food. They use sunshine, water from the ground, and the air we breathe. This whole thing, called photosynthesis, also makes the oxygen we need to live. See how different that sounds? You kept the main idea, but the words and how you put them together are now yours. This is the main way to change words to understand, and it's your first defense against copying by accident. This act of changing words changes how your writing is connected to the original source. When you copy or use words too much, your writing looks like a mix of other people's ideas. It's like wearing a coat that's too big. It doesn't fit right, and everyone can tell it's not yours. But when you change words, you take the ideas from somewhere else and make them part of your own story. You show that you have thought about the information and made it your own. Your writing then becomes something new that uses outside knowledge, but is clearly shaped by your own thoughts. This difference is very important. Copying happens when this shaping doesn't happen, or when it's done in a way that tricks people into thinking that ideas are all yours. Let's think about a student named Maya. Maya was a smart student, but she often felt like there was too much to read and write for her classes. For a history paper, she had to write about why a big war started. She found a great article that explained everything very well. Maya read it many times, and then she started writing her paper. She found herself using many of the same phrases and sentence styles from the article. She thought, well, I'm explaining the same thing, so it's okay, right? She didn't mean to cheat. She really thought she was just sharing the information correctly. But when her teacher read her paper, some parts sounded very familiar. The teacher, who had read many articles on the topic, knew the way Mia had written it. Maya was called to talk with the teacher. She felt shy and confused. She hadn't thought of it as stealing, but the teacher explained that even copying without meaning to is still copying. It's about using words or ideas that aren't yours without saying where they came from. The teacher then sat with Maya and showed her how to change words. They took a part of the article Maya used and worked on it together. The teacher didn't just tell her to change words. They talked about what the part meant. What is the writer really trying to say here? They asked. They talked about the main points and then thought of different ways to say those points. They looked for other words, but more importantly, they looked at changing the sentence structure completely. Sometimes, they even decided to put two short sentences from the original into one longer sentence, or break one long sentence into two shorter ones. Maya started to see that changing words wasn't just a trick. It was a way to show that she had thought hard about the information and made it her own. This experience with Mia shows an important point. Many times people copy not because they want to be bad, but because they don't know how or they are in a hurry. Students might feel pressure, not have enough time, or just not know how to use information from others correctly. Changing words gives them a real skill to handle this. It helps them use information from others without falling into the trap of copying. It's like learning to cook. You can't just eat raw food. You need to know how to prepare it. Changing words is the way to prepare ideas. More than just not getting caught, the deeper meaning of using changing words for honest schoolwork is very important. When you change words, you are really thinking about what you read. You are not just taking in information, you are actively learning. This active learning shows respect for the original writer's work. You know their ideas are valuable, but you also show your own thinking space. You are saying, I understand what you said, and here's how I can add to it or explain it in my own way. This is the base of honest school talk. It's about adding to a conversation, not just saying what others have already said. Also, changing words helps you not want to copy because it makes you feel more sure of yourself. When you know you can take a hard idea and explain it in your own words, you feel more able. You realize that you do have your own thoughts and that you can say them. This confidence can help a lot when you're scared you don't have enough to say or that your own ideas aren't good enough. Instead of looking for ways to fill your paper with copied sentences, you will look for chances to share your own thoughts, using the knowledge you have learned and used correctly by changing words. It's important to remember that changing words, while a strong tool against copying, doesn't mean you can forget the original source. It's still important to say where the idea came from. Changing words helps you use outside information in your work in an honest way. This means that even when you have changed an idea perfectly, you still need to say where that idea first came from. This is done by giving credit, called citation. Proper citation is like a handshake between your work and the original source. It shows respect for the writer's work and lets your readers find the original information if they want to. Changing words helps you share the meaning in your own words, and citation tells everyone who first had that meaning. Think of it like this. Changing words is about how you say something, and citation is about who first said it. You can change a complex science discovery into simple words, but you still need to mention the scientist who made that discovery. This is not just a rule, it's a way to build trust. When you give credit to your sources, you show your readers that you have done your research and that you are honest about where your information comes from. This builds your trust as a writer and a thinker. The process of changing words, when done to truly understand, naturally leads to honest actions. When you have spent time thinking hard about an idea, breaking it down, and putting it back together in your own words, you feel more connected to it. You understand its small details and what it means. This understanding makes it less likely that you would just copy someone else's words. You have used your own thinking power on the idea and you want to share it correctly and honestly, giving credit where it is due. Imagine you are writing an essay to convince people. You find a fact that strongly supports your point. The original source says, a recent study showed that 75% of people felt much better after doing mindfulness exercises every day. If you just write, a study showed that 75% of people felt better after doing mindfulness every day, you are close, but you can do better. By changing words to understand, you might write, according to new research, people who practiced mindfulness daily felt a clear improvement in their happiness and health, with 3 out of every 4 people saying they felt better. Here, you have used different words, clear improvement in their happiness and health instead of much better, and a different way of showing the number 3 out of every 4 people instead of 75%. Most importantly, you have also remembered to give credit to the study. This makes sure you are not saying the fact is your own discovery, but evidence you found and used honestly. The power of changing words also helps you avoid copying because you feel you are not good enough. Sometimes, students feel they don't have enough new ideas to fill an assignment. They might look at what others have done and feel scared. Changing words offers a way out of this. It shows that you can take existing knowledge and build on it, look at it closely, or explain it in a new way. Your part doesn't have to be a completely new discovery. It can be a thoughtful mix, a clear explanation, or a unique view of what is already known. By getting good at changing words, you gain the confidence to share your own voice, knowing that you can correctly use and give credit to what others have done. In the end, by becoming skilled at changing words, you are not just protecting yourself from the serious results of copying, the bad grades, the damage to your reputation, the loss of trust. You are also building the base for a more real and respected contribution to any school or work task. You are showing that you are a thinker, a learner, and an honest person who adds to knowledge. This skill changes you from someone who just collects information to someone who truly understands it and can explain it. It's about owning your understanding, not just borrowing it. And this ownership is what truly makes you stand out and move forward. 3. Explaining information clearly. Sometimes, learning feels like hearing a new language. Words and ideas might seem mixed up and hard to put together. We might read a book, listen to a teacher, or watch a video and nod our heads, thinking we understand. But then someone asks us to explain it. Suddenly, what seemed clear becomes wobbly. This is where changing words to make them your own is very helpful. It's not just about swapping a few words. It's about taking what you heard or read and making it yours in a way that shows you really get it. Think of it this way. If you can't explain something using your own words, can you truly say you understand it? This is the main idea of explaining for understanding. It's like trying to build a strong house with bricks you borrowed, but you don't know how they fit. You have the bricks, but the house won't be steady. Explaining is the process of taking those borrowed bricks of information and understanding their shape, their weight, and why they are used. Then, you can use them to build your own knowledge. It's the difference between just reading a recipe and actually knowing how to cook. You can say the ingredients and steps for a fancy meal, but until you can explain why you add spices at a certain time, or how heat changes the food, you are just repeating, not understanding. This act of explaining helps us check how well we are learning. When we try to explain something, we are testing ourselves. If we get stuck, If our sentences get mixed up, or if we say the exact same words from the source, it means we don't understand it very well. We haven't looked deep enough to find the real meaning, the connections, or what it means for other things. Real understanding is more than just knowing words. It's about getting the main idea and being able to say it in a new way. It's moving from just receiving information to actively working with it. When you explain something, you are not just a sponge soaking up water. You are a filter, taking in the water and letting it out cleaner and more organized. I remember when I first started teaching, I was trying to explain how plants make food photosynthesis to 10-year-olds who were smart, but easily distracted. I knew all the science words and the math for it, and I felt sure of myself. I told them the information using words like chlorophyll, carbon dioxide, and glucose. The students just looked at me with empty eyes. Some were drawing. I asked if they had questions, but no one spoke. I felt a bit annoyed. Did I explain it badly? Or were they not listening? Then I decided to try something different. I put my notes away and started over. Imagine a plant is like a little cook, I started. It needs to make its own food to grow, but it can't go to the store. So, how does it do it? I saw a few eyes light up. It uses special things from the air, something we breathe out, called carbon dioxide. It uses water from the ground, and it uses energy from the sun, like a free oven. Inside its leaves, it has a special green stuff, like a magic helper, that mixes everything. And presto! It makes its own sugary food, and it also makes the air we need to live. Suddenly, hands went up. So the green stuff in the leaves helps it cook? Does that mean plants eat sunlight? Why do we breathe out carbon dioxide if plants need it? The questions were not about repeating facts anymore. They were about asking how and why. They were connecting ideas and making their own picture of how plants make food. My first explanation, full of science words, was like a wall. My new explanation, using simple comparisons, opened a door. This taught me a big lesson. If you can explain something clearly in your own words, it's the best way to know if you truly understand it. If you can't break it down, make it simple, and explain it so someone else gets it, it's a strong sign you haven't fully understood it yourself. This brings us to another important part of explaining, the power of being simple. Often, the hardest ideas can be explained in the easiest words. When we try to explain something, it's easy to use the same fancy words we saw in the original text. We might think using big words makes us sound smarter or more correct. But this can be a trap. The goal of explaining is to share understanding, not to show off words. Explaining allows us to remove jargon and get to the main point. It helps us find the simplest words and sentences that share the main idea. Think about a science paper that describes a new medicine. It might have many technical words that only experts know. If you had to explain this medicine to a family member who isn't a doctor, you wouldn't just read them the technical part. You would need to explain it differently. You would find the main problem the medicine fixes, what the medicine does in simple terms, and what should happen after using it. You might use comparisons, like saying the medicine is like a repair crew for the body, or a key that opens a body process. Making it simple doesn't mean making it less smart. It means making it easy for more people to understand. It shows you understand the main idea, not just the difficult words used to describe it. Making things simple helps more than just letting others understand. It also makes your own understanding stronger. When you force yourself to find simpler words, you are thinking more deeply. You have to find the most important parts of the idea and then find the clearest way to say them. This helps you see the main logic and structure of the idea better. It's like cleaning up a messy room. By taking out things you don't need, you can see the important furniture and how the room is set up. Explaining for simplicity is like cleaning up your understanding. Also, Being able to explain things in your own words makes you feel more confident. When you can talk about an idea clearly, you feel more sure of what you know. This confidence is very valuable. It helps you join in more during learning. You become more willing to ask questions, join talks, and share your own thoughts. You feel less scared of hard topics because you know that if you take the time to truly understand them, you can explain them. This confidence is not being proud. It's a quiet feeling that comes from knowing you have thought about and learned the information. Imagine you are in a study group, and people are talking about an important historical event. If you have taken the time to explain the main reasons and results in your own words, you will feel more comfortable joining the conversation. You won't be afraid of saying something wrong because you are not just repeating facts. You are sharing what you understand. This active joining in helps you learn more and makes you a more helpful part of the group. It's a good cycle. Understanding leads to clear explaining builds confidence, and confidence leads to more learning and joining in. This skill of explaining clearly by changing words is also the base for teaching and guiding others. Every good teacher, every good guide, is great at changing words. They take hard subjects and break them down, using words and examples that connect with their students or those they guide. When you practice explaining, you are getting ready to be a teacher or a guide, even if it's just for yourself later or for a friend who is having trouble with an idea. You are learning how to help others understand. Think about a wise professor who can explain very difficult science in a way that even a curious young student can start to understand. They are not just saying formulas. They are changing hard ideas into words that connect expert knowledge with the beginner's curiosity. They have likely explained that information many times, making their explanations better each time. They understand the main ideas so well that they can change their explanation to fit different people and different levels of understanding. By being good at explaining, you are learning this same skill to make knowledge clear for others, which helps more people learn. Let's think about this question. How does the difficulty of explaining something show how well you understand it? It's hard to explain when the information is not just facts, but has complicated links, basic rules, or ideas that are not easy to see. If you can explain something easily, it usually means you have seen similar ideas before, or the idea itself is simple. But when you struggle, when you have to stop, read again, and think many times, it's because you are working with the deeper parts. You are trying to connect the new information with what you already know, find the logical order, and understand what it means. This struggle is not a sign of failing. It's a sign that you are thinking about the material in a deep way. It makes you go beyond just remembering words and start truly understanding. The difficulty you feel when trying to explain is like complex ideas pushing to fit into your mind. And what are the specific good things about using simple words and comparisons when explaining hard ideas? And how does explaining help with this? Simple words make information easy to get. They remove the walls that jargon can build, letting more people think about the idea. Comparisons are strong because they connect what you don't know to what you do know. When you explain, you are actively looking for these simple words and comparisons that make sense. This helps you find the main job or feature of the idea and then find a common experience that is like it. For example, explaining how a computer's memory RAM works by comparing it to a desk where you keep things you are working on right now, while the hard drive is like a file cabinet for keeping things long-term, makes that idea of memory much clearer and easier to understand. Explaining is the tool that changes complex to simple and abstract to real. Besides school or work needs, what are the personal good things about being able to explain ideas you have learned? For you, it creates a feeling of being smart. When you can explain something, you feel like you have mastered it. It makes you feel better about yourself and more sure of your ability to learn and grow. It also makes learning more fun and rewarding. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by new information, you see it as a chance to know more and to be able to share that knowledge. This personal growth can spread to all parts of your life, making you better at talking, thinking, and feeling more confident. You become someone who not only learns, but also understands and can share that understanding with others. Once we understand why it's important to explain information clearly by changing words, the next important step is to understand how this skill stops us from just copying others, which keeps our thinking honest. 4. Academic integrity and essential skills. When we learn new things, especially from books or teachers, it's like getting a present of knowledge. But a present isn't really yours until you know how to use it. This is where changing words to make them your own helps. It's not just a smart way to study, it's the key to truly understanding and, importantly, being honest in school and having a good future. Think about being honest in school or at work. It means showing your own thoughts, your own work, and what you understand. It means giving credit to others and never saying someone else's ideas are yours. Copying someone else's words or ideas without saying where they came from is like stealing. It's not honest, and it ruins the point of learning. Changing words to make them your own is our best protection against this. When you take information and explain it in your own words, you show that you have thought about the ideas, understood them, and made them yours. You are not just repeating what you read, you are showing your own thinking. This change, from someone else's sentences to yours, proves your effort and your honesty. There's a big difference between just remembering things and truly understanding them. Imagine trying to build a house with only a list of building parts. You might know you need bricks, cement, and wood, but if you don't know how they fit together, how to lay the bricks, or how to mix the cement, you can't build anything strong. Remembering facts is like having that list of parts. You can say them, but you don't know what to do with them. Changing words to make them your own, however, is like understanding the building plan. It's about knowing how the parts work together, why each step is important, and how everything creates a solid building. When you can explain an idea in your own words, you can tell it to someone else, connect it to other things you know, and even use it to solve new problems. This is what real learning is, and changing words helps you get there. It's not just about changing a few words. It's about understanding the meaning and being able to say it in a way that shows your own thinking. Being able to explain things in your own words is not just a good skill for school, it's very important for doing well in school. When you have to write an essay, you're not just supposed to find information. You're supposed to think about it, put different pieces together, and share your own ideas. Changing words helps you do this by letting you take difficult ideas from your research and put them into your own arguments. You can explain what others think in your own way, showing you understand them before you add your own thoughts or a different view. In class talks, being able to explain what a teacher or classmate said shows you are listening and thinking. It helps you ask better questions and share more thoughtful ideas. And for tests, especially those that ask you to think hard instead of just remember facts, being able to explain ideas in different ways will be your best help. It proves you didn't just memorize a book, you truly learned. The importance of explaining things in your own words goes beyond school and into jobs. In almost any job you can think of, you will need to share difficult information clearly. You might need to explain a technical idea to a customer who doesn't know much about it. You might need to make a long report short for your boss. You might need to teach a new person a process. In all these cases, being able to explain information using simple, clear words is very valuable. It shows you can take hard ideas and make them easy to understand, which employers really like. When you can explain things well, you show you are capable, think clearly, and communicate well, all signs of a good worker. This is not just about being understood. It's about showing you can help others understand and make information easy for them. Also, getting good at explaining things in your own words builds strong confidence and trust. When you know you can take information, truly understand it, and then explain it in your own words, you feel sure about what you know. This confidence can spread to others. It makes you a better speaker, a more helpful person, and a more dependable coworker. People are more likely to trust your decisions and value your opinions when they see you understand the subject well. Not just by how well you can repeat it, but by how well you can say it in your own way. This personal belief, built on real understanding, creates lasting trust. It's the difference between someone who sounds like they've read a lot and someone who truly knows their subject. Let's look closer at how changing words to make them your own is the basis of being honest with your thinking. When you find information, a great idea from a smart person, a strong argument from a writer, or important facts, and you want to use it in your own work, you have a choice. You can copy it, maybe changing a few words, hoping no one will notice. This is copying without permission, and it leads nowhere. Or you can think about that information. You can read it, think about it, and then, importantly, explain it in your own words. This process of explaining is like owning your thoughts. It's you saying, I have understood this idea, and now I am sharing it through my own view, using my own words and sentences. The original source is still important, and you still need to say where it came from. But the explanation of that idea, now in your words, is the result of your own thinking. This difference is very important. It's the difference between just passing on someone else's thoughts and being a thinker yourself. The act of changing difficult ideas into your own way of thinking changes them, making them yours in a way that just swapping words never can. This is why changing words is not just about avoiding trouble. It's about building a habit of being honest with your thinking. It's about respecting the original source by truly thinking about their ideas, and respecting yourself by showing you can learn and explain. Besides the immediate need to be honest, the long-term good things from learning to explain things well spread through your whole life of learning and work. Think about the learning process itself. When you consistently explain things in your own words, you're not just getting ready for a test, you're building a strong mental toolbox. You're teaching your brain to actively think about information instead of just taking it in. This active thinking leads to remembering better, understanding more deeply, and being able to connect ideas that seem different. Over time, this creates a more flexible and thoughtful mind. You get better at looking at arguments, finding hidden opinions, and coming to your own good decisions. This mental skill is very valuable in college, where difficult research and thoughtful discussions are common. At work, this flexibility leads to a big advantage. Imagine a situation where a company has a new problem. The employee who can quickly understand the main issues, explain them so everyone on the team can understand, and then think of new solutions based on that clear understanding is the one who will do well. They are not just doing jobs, they are helping the company think ahead. This skill of explaining and putting information together is what helps people become leaders, trusted helpers, and drivers of new ideas. It's the skill that separates those who just follow orders from those who can lead and create. Think of doctors explaining sicknesses, lawyers presenting cases, or engineers designing new things. All depend a lot on being able to explain difficult information to different people. The better you can do this, the more important you become. Your career path is directly affected by how well you can share understanding and explaining things in your own words. Is the way to do that? Learning to explain things in your own words is also a journey of building confidence. At first, it might feel hard. You might worry that your words are not as good as the original, or that you are not getting the full meaning. This is normal. But with practice, you start to see the power of your own voice. You find that you can explain hard ideas in ways that others understand, and that your own view adds value. This growing confidence is a strong reason to keep going. It makes you want to take on harder subjects, join more difficult talks, and trust your own thinking abilities. This confidence is not being proud. It's a quiet, earned belief that comes from knowing you can truly understand and explain. This, in turn, makes you stronger when things go wrong and more open to new learning. Think about the story of a student named Maya. Maya was a smart young woman, but she often had trouble with her history essays. She would spend hours reading books and articles, carefully marking important sentences. When it was time to write, she found herself copying phrases and sentence structures almost exactly from her sources. She wasn't doing it on purpose. She just didn't know how else to say the information. Her grades were okay, and she always felt worried that she was somehow cheating, even though she wasn't trying to copy. She was just stuck. One day, her teacher, a kind but serious woman named Dr. Evans, spoke to her after class. "Maya," she said softly, "you research well, but your essays sound like other people talking. I need to hear you. I need to hear what you understand." Dr. Evans told Mia about explaining things in her own words, not just to avoid copying, but to truly understand. She gave Mia a short part of a history paper and asked her to read it, then put it away and say what it meant in her own words, as if she were telling a friend. Maya struggled at first. She started by saying, "Well, the writer said that." Dr. Evans stopped her. "Don't tell me what the writer said, Maya. Tell me what you understood." Maya took a deep breath. She thought about the paragraph, about the king's order and how the people felt. She finally said, "It seems like the king made a new rule, and the people were very unhappy about it, because it made their lives harder. They were worried about what would happen next." Dr. Evans smiled. "That's what you understood. Now build on that. What were they worried about? Why was the rule so bad?" This was a big change for Maya. She started practicing explaining everything in her own words. When she read about why a war started, she wouldn't just write down the reasons. She'd write them in her own words, explaining how she saw them connecting. When she learned about a science idea, she'd try to explain it to her younger brother, using simpler words and comparisons. It was hard work. Sometimes she would get stuck, and her new sentences would still sound a bit strange or too much like the original. But she kept trying. She learned to ask herself, "What is the main idea here? How would I explain this if I had to teach it to someone who knew nothing about it?" Slowly, her essays began to change. Her teacher noticed. Maya's writing started to sound like her own voice. She could put together information from different sources, explaining each one in her own terms before joining them to make her own argument. Her grades got much better, but more importantly, Maya felt a big change inside herself. The worry about not being honest went away, replaced by a quiet confidence. She realized she wasn't just remembering facts for a grade. She was building a real understanding of the world. She was learning skills that would help her not only in school, but in every part of her life. She learned that owning her understanding, by explaining things in her own words, was the most honest and rewarding way to learn. By choosing to explain things in your own words, you not only keep your schoolwork honest and build important skills for your future, but you also find a deeper, more personal connection with the knowledge you gain. This journey of understanding leads us directly to conclusion. We have learned that to truly understand something, you need to say it in your own words. This is a very important skill. It shows that you really know something. It helps you be honest. It is needed to do well in school and in your job. We talked about how to rephrase for understanding. This means you don't just change a few words. It means you understand the meaning well and can explain it so others know you understand. This skill helps you know things for real. It helps you be honest. It helps you do well in the future. Rephrasing is the best way to show you understand. It helps you go from just hearing or reading something to truly knowing it. When you can explain an idea in your own words, you know it better. You have made it part of your own thoughts. This is how you make knowledge your own. Rephrasing also helps you be honest. It is better than copying others. It stops you from stealing ideas. It helps you build your own knowledge. This skill is very important for success. It helps you with schoolwork, tests, and your job. It makes you think better and speak better. Of course, getting good at rephrasing for understanding takes time. You get better by doing it often. Do not feel bad if it is hard at first. Think of every book you read, every talk you hear, and every chat you have as a chance to practice. Try to rephrase a part of this book. Tell a friend or family member something new you learned. Tell a news story using only your own words. Be kind to yourself. The goal is to get better, not to be perfect. When you truly understand something and can say it in your own words, it helps more than just school or work. It helps make the world a better place because people understand things more. This skill gives you power. It makes you feel sure of what you know and what you say. It makes you feel confident. The learning does not stop here. Now, you should start using rephrasing for understanding on purpose. Do it every day. When you get good at this, you are not just learning. You are building a strong base for learning your whole life, for being honest, and for doing well. How well you understand, how honest you are, and how much you succeed comes from not just what you learn, but how you make it your own. Rephrase and you will unlock what you can do.